1 p.m. Eastern, Minnesota Vikings 1-4, 1-1 on the road at these Chicago Bears that we were just speaking of, 1-4, 0-2 at home at Soldier Field in Chicago, Illinois. 53 Fahrenheit, showers, 16 miles per hour is the wind. And the wind combined with Justin Jefferson being placed on the IR today, it is Tuesday, October 10th. So he'll be out for at least the next 4 games, has made this total plummet. This total right now is at 44.5. It opened up at 49. 49, and it's now at 44.5. A huge drop in the total. Let's go over to the spread here for this one. And we have it's sitting with the Vikings -2.5 here. They opened at -3.5, and it lasted at 3.5 for an hour and 44 minutes before it moved to 3. And now it's at 2.5. So we have a real legit move to the Chicago Bears, whether they are performing or whether that's because of their bias, because of what we just saw, or the Sharps believe they're better than what they had indicated through their first 4 games. Let's get over to the cash flow then for this spot. And we are sitting with the spread has 64% of the tickets and 81% of the cash on the Bears. Market moving in that direction. And then you still have 76% of tickets and 64% of cash on the over. People thinking that this total has dropped too far. Sammy Comer says, I can't back the Bears off a win. And Skydragon says, I think Sammy nailed it. Says, how do you back Chicago off of a win? So Vikings coming off a 27-20 home loss to the Chiefs. And they played pretty well. They played pretty well. Justin Jefferson was shut down. That doesn't matter now because he's out for 4 weeks. But we can talk about who he will replace. And we know that Jordan Addison becomes WR1. But for those of you playing player props, you can imagine that KJ Osborne and TJ Hawkinson are going to get a big boost in targets. Against the Chiefs, Cousins was 29-47 for 284 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. Addison was his number one target, 6 catches for 64 yards and a touchdown. Hawkinson 5 for 51 and Osborne 5 for 49. Alexander Mattison did very little again. Ran 8 times for 26 yards. He had back-to-back strong games against the Chargers and the Panthers. He combines for 188 yards in those 2 games. And then he's back to struggling again. His longest run was 7 yards. The Vikings have the most turnovers in the NFL at 12. They've lost 8 fumbles. And their red zone defense looks bad again. They just can't be trusted defensively in the red zone. The Chiefs were 3 for 3 in the red zone. The Vikings are now 29th in the league. They allow a touchdown on 69.2% of the red zone drives. The Chiefs were 9-15 on third down. Marcus Davenport looked good. Remember, he'd been listed as questionable all week. He had 1 sack and 3 quarterback hits. You need him out there to take the pressure off of Danielle Hunter. And then Garrett Bradbury was back in the starting lineup. And I know that his grades have been really poor over, let's say, the last calendar year, but I think that has to do with the back injury. I think he's a more than capable center and can be a good center. The Bears are on extra rest after snapping their 14-game losing streak with an impressive 40-20 victory at Washington last Thursday. They looked very good, and Justin Fields looked incredible. I mean, he was just such a monster out there. 15-29, 282 yards, 4 touchdowns, ran 11 times for 57 yards. DJ Moore caught 8 for 230. Their running game combined for 32 carries for 178 yards. Unfortunately, though, Khalil Herbert left the game with a high ankle sprain. So he's going to be out multiple weeks. He's the leading rusher this year, 272 yards. He's also caught 10 passes for 83 yards and 1 touchdown in 5 games. It's a big loss. To make matters worse, Roschon Johnson suffered a concussion. These guys who are dealing with concussions, they're not coming back the next week. To make it even worse, Travis Homer injured his hamstring.
Unless you're Derek Carr, then somehow you magnificently recover in time.
But you got 3 guys out there. So they have Deonta Foreman. He's been healthy and active for multiple weeks now. So, those are huge losses to me. The defense hasn't looked better. They held the Commanders to just 29 yards on the ground. Their pass rush looks strong for the first time all year. 5 sacks. They hit Sam Howell 11 times. Greg Stroman Jr. had an interception. And they're hoping to see star safety Eddie Jackson return. Jackson hurt his foot in week 2 against the Bucs. The injuries to linebacker Tremaine Edmonds, and he looks like he's going to be okay. Center Lucas Patrick and rookie running back, I told you Rashawn Johnson there, but as is center Lucas Patrick, they're all both in concussion protocol. And Quinimus St. Brown suffered a hamstring injury. Look, I don't know if I want to just go up against market moves, but this is the perfect time to me. The perfect time. And maybe I'll need us to talk through it, but here you have Chicago feeling so good about themselves off of a win. You take out the star receiver off of the Minnesota Vikings. Do I want to back the Vikings? No, but situationally, this is exactly kind of what I'm looking for. Slim Fabo says Rashawn luckily has 9 days to recover. That's a good point, Slim. Take it away for us here, Troy. Soldier Field, right around the corner from your spot. Take it away, Vikings Bears.
At first glance, gambler's first glance, I started looking at this game thinking there's no way I'm backing the Bears. How am I going to get on the Vikings? And I wouldn't back the Bears off a win. Trust me, I backed the Bears in week 1, and I never wanted to get back on ship. And I wouldn't want to get back on ship unless something fundamentally changed at the root level. Whereas, for example, like the Broncos last week, I faded the shit out of the Broncos. They got off their first win, and it was because nothing fundamentally changed. The defensive scheme stayed the same. The offensive scheme stayed the same. They did nothing different. So that win, to me, was an aberration. In this case, watching this Bears team, it was clear that something had changed. And when you go into the analytics, you start to find out why. Firstly, it was clear that they designed a scheme fit for Justin Fields opposed to trying to make a square peg fit into a round hole like I was talking about earlier. Same applies here, except now he's starting to understand. He has to design his scheme to the players that he has and the personnel he has. So here's what I got for you guys. Deep ball. We all know Justin Fields throws a deep ball. We all know he was highly touted for his deep ball ability and deep ball accuracy. Well, in weeks 1 through 4, he had 16 passes of 20-plus yards. In week 5, 16 in 4 weeks, 16 total passes. In week 5 against the Commanders, he had 14. He almost doubled that number in 1 week. RPO at Ohio State. We all know Justin Fields was running RPO on about over 30% of the snaps. Well, in weeks 1 through 4, they had 5 pass attempts from the RPO. In week 5, they had 10 pass attempts from the RPO. They doubled that statistic. They moved the pocket with some play action for the first time, some semi-rolls, some ways to get a clearer vision for Justin Fields to make deep ball passes, to make passes downfield. Maybe not deep, but it definitely made a difference. And defensively, this is also something that surprised the shit out of me. Defensively, they blitzed way more frequently than they did in weeks 1 through 4. Weeks 1 through 4, they blitzed 24 times. This past week, they blitzed 14 times. Why do you blitz? You blitz to mask poor defenses, to create more variance in the game, to maybe create a turnover, create a second and long or a third and long opposed to a third, second and short. Taking those gambles like that, it pays off. And it's actually the Vikings do it the same, right? We all know the Vikings are the highest blitzing team in the NFL. However, the main point on the Vikings, they blitz at the highest rate in the NFL, but they have the second lowest pressure rate in the NFL. So despite allocating more assets to pressure the quarterback, they're still not getting home. They're still not pressuring quarterbacks. That's just what it is. And you could tell, I think that this Vikings defense is not good. I feel like the Bears should be able to take advantage if they remain true to what I've seen the past 2 weeks, specifically, more importantly, this last week specifically. Because when I watched that Broncos game, I rewatched it because I didn't watch it live. And I was like, I still don't believe. This was pretty much the same exact scheme that we've always seen. But this past week, you could tell things changed. The scheme changed. Hopefully the feeling in the locker room has changed. And Kirk Cousins, he's 11-21 ATS versus teams with a 35% win rate or less. So he doesn't cover versus bad teams. They're still – so I've heard someone else talk about how the Vikings have been so completely unlucky this year. I still think they still have more debt to repay for how lucky they got last year. So one thing I did move on is the Bears on a teaser. I got them plus 8.5. We all know Vikings like to play one-score games. And even all their wins last year, I'm pretty sure they were 11, I'm pretty sure out of all the wins they had last year, only 2 of the wins out of the 13 would have covered the spread. This year, they only have 1 win. They wouldn't have covered a teaser leg. And home teams in divisional games that close at 2.5 after a market move towards them are 10-1 straight up. That's over 85% on a teaser. We need 75% to be break even on a -120 teaser. I think the Bears on a teaser is a profitable bet in the long run.
Yeah, I get the teaser for sure. Ron Crawford says Bears off double-digit win spread +6 or more, or 12-36 against the spread next game. 12-36 against the spread next game. Sky Dragon says he'll bet the over. I think this has gone too low. Even in the rain, I think this has gone too low. Now there is 16-mile-per-hour winds expected. What do you think of this total dropping from 49 to 44.5?
Yeah, it's definitely weather related. We got to see this summer. I would never bet the total knowing what the weather's going to be like.
I think this is too low. Spenny has the over at 44.5. I'm interested in the over, and I don't need to be on the Vikings, but I want to be. I want to test the Bears to do it again. Maybe they're capable of it. The over is I'm going to move on the over at some point. Maybe I move on now. I think that I'm going to have to keep a closer eye on the weather here. So maybe I don't bet it tonight, but I want the over at this point. And I kind of want to fade the Bears. I certainly won't fade them tonight, but I'll be thinking about it heavy over the next few days. Troy is using the Bears for a first leg of a teaser. We'll hear the second leg here shortly.
I also have them earmarked for a money line round robin. I think there's three spots, at least 3 spots this week. I'm going to have a money line round robin underdogs this week, and they're definitely a candidate.
It worked very well for you 2 weeks back. All right, let's roll. Brady says, why don't we all bet Bears +8.5, Washington +8.5 teaser right now? All right, let's move on to the next spot on the board.